June marks the end of the lean months. Our first crops are ready for picking, and it's also a month when we can do some of the outstanding jobs here on the allotment. Welcome to Self-Sufficient in Suburbia. Coming up in this edition, we have a go at handling bees in preparation for getting our own hives. I turn my hand to making fruit liqueurs. Jam making is underway, and we build a polytunnel. But first, we've had the driest spring on record, and that affected one of our big projects here on the allotment. One of the things we've been planning to do for some time on the allotment is to put a pond in. Now, the reason why I want to do that is because ponds attract things like frogs and toads, and they eat all the bugs, and the pond will therefore encourage even more of them to live on the allotment, and that helps us with our pest control. Fortunately, we've had the allotment for 3 or 4 years now, and we've never got round to building it, but now we've actually got it all planned, and we're going to start digging it as we're speaking. What we're going to do is we've chosen this patch here on bed 4, and it's going to be a 2 metre by 2 metre pond up to about 40 or 50 centimetres deep in the middle. Now all the soil from it is going to come out, and it's going to go onto the raised bed, which itself is going to have a polytunnel put onto it. And what we want to do is get the pond dug so that we can actually then get the polytunnel up and running. Well, that's it now measured out, so cutting the first sod, here goes. One of the problems we're going to have with this is that there's still some roots in it, particularly these mare's tail roots, which seem to get everywhere, so I'll be sifting through this as we transfer it over to make sure that these aren't free to grow in the polytunnel. We'll find out later how we get on building the pond. In the meantime, we've been as busy as a bee. Well, one of the things we've been planning to do is to get bees, and we've got on order a couple of hives which have not yet arrived, but what we've also done is to go on a beekeeper's course. But today we've come up to the Hexham Beekeepers Association apiary out here in the Tyne Valley in Northumberland, just to have a go at opening up hives and handling bees.
The scraper hive that looks on in front of the table.
Lovely.
Thank you.
Right. If you want smoke, just say it.
Yeah. If it's sticky, you might need the.
Just all you have in the top will be.
Does it matter there's bees on it?
No.
There's quite a lot of bees on it actually.
Diagonally on the.
So should we? Yeah. There's a lot on the other side. So put it on an angle so that it's not
Squishing them.
That's right.
Bare one.
Well, it's a sensible idea, isn't
It does
it?
actually work, doesn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah. So you start from this end or where the spare one is?
Well,
You turn it over.
yeah.
And
Right.
it's actually supposed to do it away from yourself. Now, are those drones? Are they bigger? Are they just quite big worker bees?
I think
Females.
I think so, because isn't the drone? There's something about the eyes
Yes, he's
that
much.
changes.
Yeah, and he's much fatter, isn't he, in the body?
Yes.
They're just very healthy bees, I think. No cream that I can do. There's a cream cup there. Is that a cream cup in the middle?
About coming in from this hole is much better.
It is, isn't it? Because you
Yeah.
get so much more leverage.
It's quite masterfully.
No, I just keep putting mine.
It's glad to find
Why
it.
some
They don't give you
people
that
might
sense of
eventually
feel.
get
No, no.
experience and decide to go with bare hands.
Yes. That I have to say, I'm going to go for the thin gloves. I think.
Oh, what have we got there? And you see about a third up on the left hand
Anybody
side.
found another queen yet?
That's a larvae. We've got, isn't she?
No, but that's exactly what she'd be doing as she's crossing those little empty cells.
Can you point again to the queen?
Yeah, she's just gone into here. She's underneath this bee here. There's a bee on top of her. You can just see a little blue spot there.
Do you want me to tip it up or anything?
Well, last year we had a really good cauliflower crop, and we grew it over on bed 2, which is just behind the camera there. Now, this year we grew a lot of cauliflowers from seeds in the greenhouse, and this is one of the trays that we have, and we wanted another good crop this year. Unfortunately, we've had a bit of a problem, which is that we've got a rabbit problem in the area, and this tray of cauliflowers I put outside the greenhouse just for a few hours, and when I came back, the rabbits had munched their way through the tops of all these cauliflower seedlings, so we've had to let them grow back again. But the good news is that they seem to be doing well. We've bought another tray from the local nursery to expand the crop as well, and on this bed here we're going to be planting them out, and we're going to net them to keep the rabbits off. Now, if you've been following our videos previously, you would have seen that this whole area of the allotment has been derelict for quite some years, and we want to get this into production. And this area a few weeks ago was completely overgrown, but as you can see, it is now completely open and ready to be planted. Well, at last we've got it done. The netting that we used was formerly the roof of the fruit cage, which collapsed under the weight of snow in January, and we had to replace it with a firmer mesh roofing that went over the fruit cage. So this lightweight net we had left over has been used to keep at least the rabbits off, fingers crossed, and hopefully the birds as well, although I'm less concerned about the birds getting onto it, because the real pests at the moment are the rabbits. June means soft fruit picking season, and for us that means two jobs need to be done. One is jam making, and the other one is to make some of these. These are fruit liqueurs. This is a gooseberry vodka we made last year, and this is a cherry vodka. And what we're going to do today is have a go at making some more of this. This is blackcurrant vodka. We've got a really good blackcurrant crop at the moment. Now, general rule for making fruit liqueurs that we go by is use a cheap brand of supermarket own brand vodka or rum or gin. We use 300 grams of soft fruit and 150 grams of sugar when we're making fruit liqueurs, but you can vary it. It's up to you, it's down to taste, but generally speaking they're the quantities that we use. Into the storage jars put your fruit and then the sugar, and then once they're in you need to add the vodka. Then need to seal the jar like that, and as you can see the sugar is already settling to the bottom there, and that all needs to be dissolved, so you need to give this a good shake up every day for about 2 weeks, because it takes up to 2 weeks for the sugar to dissolve. And as you can see, the colour is already starting to percolate through. Now after the first 2 weeks, once that sugar's dissolved completely, give it a shake up about once a month, and at the end of 3 months it's then ready to be bottled. Well, here's some other fruit liqueurs that we prepared recently. This is strawberry gin. As you can see, still sugar at the bottom there. That was a new one for us. We've not made that one before, so rather looking forward to that one. This is gooseberry vodka, just set away yesterday, and as you can see, still a lot of sugar at the bottom, so that's going to need quite a shake up to get it going. As I say, it takes up to 2 weeks for the sugar to fully dissolve. And then here we have double helpings of raspberry gin. This was one of the first types of fruit liqueurs that I made, so that's a regular for us. Now when you strain off the fruit just before you bottle it, just before you bottle the liqueur, keep the fruit that's been pickled. These are cherries pickled in vodka, and we can use them in fruit salads or with ice cream or so on. Or you can do what we sometimes do, which is to put the fruit into the sweet mince that we make for Christmas, and in that way nothing is wasted. When we took on the allotment a few years ago, it had been completely derelict and unused for at least a decade, if not longer. But when I looked at old maps of Sunnyside Village, where we live and where our allotment is, we found that from the late Victorian period, the maps were showing that these allotments were still here, on the same boundaries as well, and therefore the hedges that we've got around the allotments here are very old. But it does mean that they need an awful lot of management. Now, we're right on the edge of bed 4 on our allotment, and here we have a couple of trees that have grown in the last few years which actually need to be taken out. I'm not a great fan of chopping down trees, but unfortunately they've grown where they shouldn't have done, and they're blocking the light to this end of the allotment. And since we're going to put a polytunnel here, then unfortunately those trees have to come out. Done in one. All I've got to do is get down. Well, we're up here on my dad's allotment, which is in the next village up from where we live. Now, unfortunately, my dad's not been too well this year, and he's asked us to take on his allotment just to look after it until he gets better. Now, it's a much smaller allotment than ours is. 2 main beds, and because there's been a bit of a time gap between Dad asking us to look after it and us coming onto it, then it's got a bit overgrown, and we'll show you that in a moment. But what I've done on this smaller bed here is I've planted it out with potatoes, onions and peas. Now in the centre here we've got some absolutely fantastic redcurrant and blackcurrant bushes, and frankly they're putting ours to shame back on our allotment because they're so good here. And one of the jobs I've been doing, and it's all over my fingers here, is picking some of those blackcurrants, and we'll be taking them back to make some jams and chutneys with them. This is what we're calling bed 1. This was completely overgrown a couple of weeks ago, and I came in, chopped back all the weeds, dug them out and then rotivated it. So we've got 3 rows of potatoes, 6 rows of onions and 3.5 rows of peas. Now they've gone in a bit late. The peas are on time, but the onions and the potatoes have gone in a bit late. But there were seed potatoes and sets that my dad gave me. If we didn't get them in, they were going to go to waste. We think we'll probably still get a crop out of them. Dad's had mint planted on the allotment, and the problem with mint is it becomes very invasive. It can take over and it can spread via the roots, but it's a very good quantity that we've got here. So we'll be using this back in the house to make some mint sauce, and very good for making mint tea and for freshening your breath as well. This is bed 2 on Dad's allotment. It's the biggest bed here on the allotment, and as you can see, completely overgrown. So my next job is to cut back all these weeds, dig them out, and then put the rotavator on it, and we're probably going to use this for growing some winter crops. Well, we're now into the jam making season, and we've just recently made this. This is rhubarb and gooseberry jam. Now that's quite a good combination because the gooseberries are very high in pectin, but rhubarb is very low in pectin, so adding the two together actually ensured that jam set. Now this year we've got only one bush of white currants in the garden, and that's the white currants there, but the raspberries are early this year, and we're looking forward to quite a bumper crop. And these are the first few raspberries that we've picked from the allotment. Now, raspberries very low in pectin, so when you make raspberry jam, you've normally got to add lemon juice to them to make them set, because lemons are high in pectin. But soft fruits such as the white currants, these white currants here, tend to be rather high in pectin, so they're quite good for getting jams to set. Now this is the first time I've made raspberry and white currant jam, because normally there's a bit of a time gap between harvesting them, but because the raspberries are so early this year, we're actually able to make raspberry and white currant jam for the first time. So if you want to make it, this is what you have to do. Well, into the jam pan, put equal weights of raspberries and white currants. Now you don't need to add any water because there's enough juice, enough liquid in both those fruits. And then simply apply heat and bring them to the boil. Once it's come up to the boil, turn the heat down so that it simmers. Now as you can see, the raspberries have broken up first, and you just need to simmer it long enough until the white currants also disintegrate. The fruit has more or less disintegrated in here. 1 or 2 white currants still there, but I'm not too worried about that. So now it's time to add in the sugar, and the amount of sugar that you add in is the same as the total quantity of fruit that went in. So this is just a small batch, so we only need 1 kilo of sugar. Well, once the jam's been boiling for a few minutes, you then need to check that it's reached its setting point. And the way to do that is just put a dollop of it on a plate like that, on a saucer like that, and normally I would say if it's formed a skin, then it's set, but as you can see it has well and truly set. So this is ready for going into hot sterilised jars. So there we go, we've made 3 jars of white currant and raspberry jam from 1 kilo of fruit. So remember, it's a good combination. White currants very high in pectin, raspberries very low in pectin but lots of juice in them as well, so good combination. So really looking forward to trying that out on my toast. We've been digging the pond now for about 2 weeks, and we've got through the topsoil and we've found underneath a very thick, heavy strata of clay, and I'm having to use the pickaxe to make our way through it, but gradually it's taking shape, and the big job next will be to smooth it out and then put the lining into it, and then the even bigger job after that is to fill it with water. I think we've dug as much of the pond as we're going to do. We've dug around about 30 centimetres down around the edge to give us a ledge, and then in the middle, a sort of roundish or nearly round section, which is about another 20 to 30 centimetres deep. We've hit some pretty hard substrata of clay, so that's about as much as we're going to be doing in terms of digging down, because it's been quite an effort to be able to get that out. And the next job is to put on an underlay. It's a bit like putting a carpet in, so we put an underlay on it on the pond, and then the lining goes on top of that. I'm now right in the middle of the pond, and the underlay is now in place, and if you look at it, it's a bit like a blanket, and what it does, it softens the edge of the ground. We've had to remove any sharp stones or lumps, anything that could pierce the lining once we put it in, but this is now ready for the lining actually to go into it. Liners in. What we've done is we put a series of stones around the outside to hold it in place, and then we're going to put water into the middle, and that will help pad out the liner, and the weight of it will ensure that only any gaps around the edge are filled in, but will also take up the stones so that it can drag in the liner so that it's got a nice snug fit to it. So the next job is we need to get that water in there. The only problem is, on the allotment we don't have a mains water supply, so we're going to have to carry the water over from the house, which is going to be quite a job. Next job is to put up a polytunnel. Now, we've got the greenhouse on the allotment already, and we've had that now for 3 summers, and we've managed to fill it to overflowing in each summer, and we think that a polytunnel will actually help us with some of the overflow from the greenhouse. But what the polytunnel will also give us is the opportunity to grow some vegetable crops during the winter, which would otherwise be quite difficult to grow outdoors. So these are the instructions. These are some of the bits that we've got to put together, so here goes. As you can see, the polytunnel is built on a raised bed. We've had the bed in for about a year now, but it's designed to take a polytunnel on top of it. Now, David, who normally does the filming, is the one who's actually building it today. There's any other way of doing this. Well, these are the red currants that I picked this morning, and the good thing about red currants is that they're packed full of pectin, so preserves that are made from them set well. And in this instance, what we're going to do is make a red currant jelly. So into a jam pan, put your red currants, and then add a little bit of water just to make sure that it's not going to catch on. Now, you don't need to measure the weights at the moment because we're going to be working on liquids which we'll extract from this, and that comes later on in the process. But once you've added the water in, you just need to apply heat and bring this up to the boil. Once it's come up to the boil, leave it to simmer until all the fruit is broken up and the juices have circulated around and percolated through the entire mix. After you've simmered it for about an hour and it's nicely pulped up, then's the time to put it through a jelly bag to strain it. After it's strained for a few hours, you need to measure the liquid and put it in the jam pan. When the liquids come up to the boil, add in 1 kilo of sugar for every litre of liquid. Once it's come back up to the boil, you then need to check for the setting point. You get a dollop of it, put it on a saucer, and then run the spoon through it, and if it's developed a skin like this one has here, then you know it's ready to go into sterilised jars. That is the finished product. As you can see, beautiful crimson red colour on it. Made just over 4 jars from that 1 litre of liquid that we had. Now, this is the pulp that's left over from when we strained it. Now, we're not going to throw that out. What we're actually going to do is add that into another jam that we're making, which we call summer fruit jam, and the clue is in the name. It's lots of different fruits that we've got growing on the allotment, such as strawberries, raspberries, gooseberries and various other different types of currants. So that's not going to be wasted. We're going to make sure that gets used up as well. Well, I hope you enjoyed our June edition of Self-Sufficient in Suburbia. In the next edition, we're hoping to be reporting about our plans to get chickens. But before we leave you, I'm just going to show you a few shots of something that we took delivery of a few days ago, and we'll be reporting back in the next edition.